Okay, so my pocket's finished now and I've got myself some pins, so I'm ready to sew it onto my jumper. Okay, so take your jumper and, as I explained before, trace the central group down from the start of the yoke all the way down to find the central space on your last row, and then locate the central space along the bottom of your pocket, and it should be in line with the middle group along the top of your pocket. And you're going to take that central space, line them up together, and then you're going to get some pins and pin that pocket in place. So make sure you match up all the groups. So I'm just going to kind of match up every other group. So I'm going to pin my pocket in place and make sure it's not pinned to the underside. So I've got all my pins in and I'm ready to sew it together. So grab your yarn needle and you're going to start by sewing the bottom of the pocket in place. So thread up your yarn needle and you're going to start over here. So you can see that that group lines up with that group lines up with that group, and then I've got my one treble which should line up with the first treble of the next group. So I'm just going to go in there and pull my yarn through. Okay, and now I'm going to come up in the bottom of the next 3 treble group and come up in the bottom of the first 3 treble group on my pocket and pull through. I'm going to go down through the next 3 treble group and down through the next 3 treble group on my jumper and pull through. Ideally I like to sew in this direction from left to right, but my yarn is on this side, so I'm going to go with this side. So come up the top of the next treble stitch and in the top of the last treble stitch of that group and pull through, then go down in the next one and down into the next group and pull through. So it's just a case that we're just sort of doing like a running stitch, and then continue to go up through the stitches in the bottom, through the stitches in the top and pull through, go down through the next one. Make sure that you're always keeping your stitches lined up and you're not pulling them too far and mismatching them. So take out the next pin. So you've got the 2 legs of the stitch underneath in front of your needle and the 2 legs of the stitch on the top in front of your needle, and so you pull through. So we're just locking those stitches together and you're going to go all the way across to the end. Okay, so I'm just on the last stitch now, so I'm just going to make sure that last stitch goes in where it should. And I'm at the end, so I'm just going to take that through and create a little knot, and then I'm going to weave in my end. But for now, I will just snip it off. And that's the bottom of my pocket attached. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to attach the top. So we are going to pin our foundation double crochet setup row over the stitches that they correspond to. So it needs to go there, one more there, should do it. So that's the right spot where it needs to go. So I'm going to thread up my yarn. I'm going to turn my work sideways because I find it easier, and I've got that one there corresponds to that group there, so this first one will correspond to this group here. So I'm going to go into this group, So into the bottom of that group there, and then I'm going to come up here, and then I've got not really anything to sew it into there, so I'm just going to sew it into. Just make sure that the olive one is matched up with the group below. I'm just going to go back down and come back up in a sort of running stitch across the top. So I'm going to go in there, come up there, in there, and come up there, making sure that my groups are fully lined up. So that olive one corresponds to that olive group there, so I just need to make sure that that goes along there, and then I'm going to go through to the back. And then in the back I'm just going to loop through a bit of the stitch and loop through there and fasten off, and I will weave in my end in a moment. So that's the top secured, and now I just need to sew up these bits here. Okay, so I'm now going to sew up this edge. So I've just threaded up my needle with this yarn, and I'm going to go through to the back just to sew that down. I'm just going to put a stitch in the bottom here as well, just to keep that bit down. So I'm just going to do like a sort of running stitch up the side here. Make sure you don't go and sew the back of the jumper to the front of the jumper. You can, if you find it easier, just go down to the inside and back out. I'm not going right on the edge, I'm just sort of going just under the edge of the top of the double crochet stitches. When you get to the corner, make sure you pull that sort of corner out so it's nice and square, and go through to the back, and then you're going to fasten off. So go through some of the stitches and make a loop, and then pull tight, and then you're going to weave in that end later. What I am actually going to do is just sew down this part here, because this bit here is still not attached, it's still flapping, so I'm going to need to sew that down. So I'm just going to hold that in, come through from the back into there, and then go down into it, and then I'm just going to do one more just to hold it securely. So I'm doing the same on the other side, and this is a bit more awkward for me. So I'm just going in and out, trying to keep it as straight as possible. Make sure that that bit there is quite reinforced, because that's where your hands are going to be going in and out. So it's going to have a lot of pressure on it. Just go over that a few more times, and then turn to the back, catch some of the back of your stitches, wrap a loop round, pull it through, and fasten off. Go back down in there, pull it tight, come back out, go back down again, right on the edge, so you're really sewing that top part down. So yeah, that's how it's going to look.